Last night, protesters entered a highway in Seattle. They set up two vehicles to block the road. It wasn't a very large group of people. A car seemingly tried to swerve out of the way of the vehicles in front of them and slammed into two women. One of them is in critical condition. I'll read you the story here in just a second to give you the full context. And do you know what the first thing the protesters started screaming? What was the first thing they started screaming once they saw these people get hit? What do you think they started saying? Who do you think they asked for? What do you think they said to do? Most of you have probably already guessed the right answer. Call 911. Help, police, help. Seriously. There's a video going around of what happened. It's all caught on camera, and it is, man, it's infuriating. I have never, man, I don't even know how to describe it. Let me read you the story, and then we'll talk about what happened. And like I got to tell you, man, a couple hours before starting this recording this segment, they were rioting in Portland. I don't know what you want me to say. It's the 4th of July. Trump is going to be deploying DHS and FPS, which means we may see something tonight as these protests and riots have continued. You stand around in a highway. Man, I'll tell you what. Okay, let me read this one. We'll break this one down. The Guardian reports 2 women injured as car drives through Seattle protest crowd. They say one woman suffered life-threatening injuries and the other had serious injuries. Washington State Patrol spokesperson Rick Johnson tweeted. The Seattle Fire Department said the injured women appeared to be in their 20s. Quote, a vehicle drove through the closure and struck multiple pedestrians on the freeway, Johnson tweeted shortly after 2 a.m. Just before midnight, he had said portions of Interstate 5 were closed because of protests. The vehicle was stopped and the driver was in custody. Seattle has been the site of prolonged unrest following the George Floyd incident. Interstate 5 has been closed at times for protests in the week since. Dozens of people were arrested this week in connection with the protests after authorities cleared the Chaz. Early on Saturday morning, video on social media showed a white car traveling at a high speed navigate around 2 vehicles which were positioned across the lanes as a barrier. The car careened toward a handful of protesters on the freeway, striking 2 who flew into the air before landing on the ground. Further details were not immediately available, but state troopers planned a press conference for 4 a.m. local time. Seattle police tweeted that they were assisting the state patrol at southbound lanes of the freeway, and as the southbound lanes of the freeway remained closed for investigation. So there's still riots happening. Let's talk about what happened in Seattle. I can't show you the videos, but I've pulled up. There's a live stream on the freeway. Somebody was streaming on the freeway. There's 2 vehicles. A car is coming around a curve. So here's what people don't understand, man. I tell you this. When you're driving 60, 70 miles an hour or whatever the speed limit is, probably going 60, right? It's 55, you're going 5 over. People don't realize that those white lines in the road, what are those, like 10 feet? They're huge. But because we're going so fast, they look a lot shorter. So it's like a common internet fun fact. Did you know the white lines on the road are 10 feet long? And you're like, no way, they look like they're so short, because you're going fast. So you can have a very long stretch. And if you're standing still, it looks like a car could see you in time. But they can't. Now, there's conflicting reports as to what happened and how it happened. Some are saying that the highway was closed off. This car should not have been able to have gotten on the highway at all. Some people are saying that he drove up an exit ramp. No idea. Have no idea. I can tell you this. The person probably had no idea what was going on. And by the time they came around this curve, there's a white van, no lights on, a black car, no lights on. They see it. They swerve out of the way. They had a split second to stop, and they didn't. And when they swerved past the van, what happens on the other side of that van? A bunch of people were standing in the street. Boom, boom. They go flying in the air, hit the ground. It's a horrifying tragedy, man. But I mean, it's shocking to me that people are acting like, of course, the left is trying to claim it was an intentional attack. They want to use it as propaganda. That's just absurd. Now, the driver did apparently flee. The police then pursued, and they have the driver in custody. That's my understanding. But I'll tell you what, man, would you stop? Would anybody stop after that shooting in Provo? After everything we've seen? Nah, they're not going to stop. I wonder if they call the police. We'll see what happens. For now, I think it's hard to know exactly what went down, right? If it's true, this car went around a closure sign because they were ignoring the road closure, they're in serious trouble. If they just made a mistake and maybe went up the wrong ramp, that could really be what have happened. For all we know, this person was looking for the entrance to the highway and they saw the wrong, they went up the wrong ramp, got on the highway somehow. I don't know. I have no idea. In any normal circumstance, I'd have to imagine the driver would not be at fault. However, we're in the realm of morality policing, and Seattle is on the side of the fanatics. They are. The only reason that Chaz got shut down is because they went to the mayor's house. But she has routinely supported them, downplayed the violence. Apparently, they're even saying that they shut down the highways for the protesters. The government loves what these people are doing. Now you have to consider what I've said over and over again. Do you want to deal with the mob smashing and destroying things, or just arrest one person because they hit somebody? Here's what we're getting. The left is saying it's very clearly manslaughter. You know, I'm getting people tweeting at me like, how could you defend manslaughter? Shut up. Yeah, people are so stupid. If you're driving down the highway and some random people put a van in the road, how are you supposed to do anything to avoid this? You've got a second and a half. You see it. What do? You swerve out of the way. Could you see anyone on the other side? No, of course not. So now people are hit. You want to know what really, really made me angry? But I got to admit, made me laugh. Not because it's funny, but the sheer absurdity of the place we're at. What are these people protesting for? What is their mantra? What is their call? Defund the police. Not every single person. But I mean, the gist of the protests are about not liking cops, right? I turn on a live stream from, it's a recording now, from somebody who filmed the aftermath. And they're all yelling, call the police, help, the police, where are they? Oh, geez. And guess who runs in full speed to provide life-saving emergency response? A police officer. That's right. This cop who knows these people hate him, this cop who knows that they're protesting against you, still drove in when he was called and rushed out to try and save these protesters' lives. It's almost like it's all fake, right? Like it's one big stupid game to these kids. If they really thought the cops were bad, they wouldn't call for help. They'd say, we'll take care of it ourselves. I mean, they did that in the Chaz. But no, they don't actually think so. They're just privileged elitists who have nothing else to do. So they're just mindlessly going like, yeah, cops are bad. Oh no, quick, call the police. And that's what they did. I am extremely grateful to that officer who was able to get there. Hopefully these people both make it. One person has serious injuries. One person is critical. Hopefully that officer arriving on time may have saved this woman's life. And I mean, keep your fingers crossed, man. We do not want to see an escalation in violence. But I'm worried about now what the results of this for the driver will be. Even if the driver did enter, a closed highway, you're in trouble. You're in serious trouble. Apparently, the cops are saying they don't know how this driver got up on the highway. It's supposed to be closed. But that could just be leftist propaganda. And I don't trust anything that comes out of their mouths. They want it to be a targeted attack. They want to go, help, help, I'm being repressed. When in reality, they just decided in the middle of the night, when it's dark out, to block a road and stand in the middle of the street. It's funny seeing, people who aren't from America ask questions about this, saying things like, I saw one person say, was there a guard or something to stop the pedestrians? And people are like, yo, bro, yeah, you can't walk on an interstate highway, period. You can't bring a bicycle, non-motorized vehicles. In fact, some highways don't allow even mopeds. You got to have a certain engine size. So for these people to be walking around, man, I tell you what, there's a lot going on. Donald Trump gave a speech last night, inspirational. A lot of people are cheering him on. He's announced that he's going to be setting up a garden of heroes, statues of very famous and celebrated historical figures, and he wants them to be realistic depictions. This in response to the far left trying to destroy everything. I gotta say, I really like it. Trump can do a lot of things. He can protect our statues, but he's actually swung the pendulum full in the other direction. He's going to build new statues. It's interesting. However, the reason I bring this up is that the New York Times, the New York Times, the Washington Post, the LA Times are calling it divisive, dark, saying that Trump is leaning into the culture war. Yeah. Should we all just ignore? Look at this, what I pulled up. This is from flashalert.net, July 3rd to 4th demonstrations in downtown Portland. Look at this tweet. This is from 7:28 a.m. Eastern time this morning. The federal courthouse was attacked and a riot has been declared. Immediately disperse to the west or you are subject to arrest, force, or munitions. Amazing. As if these people are on Twitter and that's going to do anything, but hey, they announced it, right? It's not stopping in Portland and Seattle. So Trump's going to deploy. He's got Homeland Security, a special unit. I think it's called PACT. I forgot what it stands for. And Federal Protective Services. We'll see. Let me read you the press release from the Portland Police Bureau. They say a group of a couple hundred demonstrators gathered near the Justice Center on July 3rd for several hours. The group blocked the street on the Southwest 3rd Avenue. We don't need, during this time, a couple demonstrators set off commercial-grade fireworks on Southwest Main Street, where the elk statue used to stand. Around 11 p.m., demonstrators began marching to Waterfront Park for about 45 minutes. Demonstrators rallied in the park at 11:45 p.m. They marched back to Southwest 3rd Avenue and gathered in the street. Around 12:53 a.m., so mind you, this is around 3 or 4 a.m. Eastern time, a few of the demonstrators began throwing rocks at the federal courthouse building. Some of these rocks broke windows. At around 1:30 a.m., some demonstrators began shooting the commercial-grade fireworks toward the Justice Center. Many demonstrators were carrying makeshift shields and sticks. So let me break down this tactic for you, okay? They want to do it slowly. They don't want to start with a hard attack on the courthouse, which immediately incites a police response. They throw a rock. Window breaks. Okay. Window's broken. Then they wait a little bit. Then they try launching the fireworks into the broken windows. You see, one step at a time. Take out the window, then you can get the fireworks inside. They've been trying to burn this place to the ground. Some individuals began dragging fencing material and barricades and constructing a fence in the area. Several small fires were lit throughout the night, including some dumpster fires, but Portland Fire and Rescue personnel were not required. There were also several arguments and physical fights within the group, but they all broke up without police intervention. In ongoing efforts to de-escalate the situation, PPB members stayed away from the demonstrators as there was not an identified life safety risk. At about 4 a.m., the federal courthouse was attacked. A riot was declared, and efforts were made to get the crowd to disperse, including numerous warnings to leave the area or be subject to arrest or force. PPB did not deploy CS gas at any point. This is still an active situation, and the area near the courthouse is still impacted, including Southwest 3rd and Main. Traffic in the area may be impacted. Use caution if driving near the Justice Center and federal courthouse. I tell you what, don't drive near them. Don't. Because you don't want to be in a car near these people, especially with everything going on in Seattle or otherwise. Look, man, this stuff's been going on for over a month now. I don't think you can call it a demonstration. They're not demonstrating anything. They're trying to burn down a courthouse. So what do you want to call it? I don't know, man. I have no idea. It just seems like everything keeps escalating. So we have this news because this is what happened yesterday. 9 arrested after Portland riot. Feds arrest 1. This is from the day before. It's been a sustained assault, I suppose. And so you know what's interesting to me is the response to Donald Trump's speech last night. I don't know if you saw it, but he was at Mount Rushmore, and he was talking about defending America. He was talking about protecting our statues. He really did lean into the culture war. And when I saw this tweet, check this out from the New York Times. Breaking news: President Trump delivered a dark and divisive speech at Mount Rushmore, leading into the culture wars and barely mentioning the pandemic. Because the New York Times is on the other side of those culture wars. No matter what he does, they'll come after him. It's wrong. It's bad. We've got the New York Times. Trump uses Mount Rushmore speech to deliver divisive culture war message. The LA Times. At Mount Rushmore, Trump, tries to stoke a culture war. I got to stop and mention, though, take a look at this photo. They have this photo from the screen behind Trump showing Mount Rushmore with his face next to Lincoln. Wow, that's a bold photo choice, LA Times. I get the point you're trying to make, but that's a positive look for the president. Sure. And then we have, this is from the Washington Post. At Mount Rushmore, Trump exploits social divisions, warns of left-wing culture revolution in dark speech ahead of Independence Day. Yes, because it's happening. And of course, because the media is on the other side of that culture war, they favor the culture revolution. It's not so much that they do, but that these organizations have been completely overrun. The New York Times recently had a big controversy where 150 or so staffers threatened to leave, or they did it was some kind of digital strike, I suppose. An editor was forced to resign because they had published the story by an op-ed by Senator Tom Cotton saying that Trump should call in the military to stop the rioting. This was earlier in the month, or last month, I'm sorry. And so these organizations are completely on one side of things. It made me wonder, what makes the speech dark and divisive? If Donald Trump comes out and says, I love America, I will defend America, I will stop people from tearing down our statues and monuments, and they call that dark. Interesting. Think about it. What does that really mean? It means they think it's wrong to defend the Constitution, the flag, Mount Rushmore, the 4th of July. I mean, the things they were saying, the CNN said that Trump was having an event during a pandemic. It's like, an event? It's Independence Day. It's the birth of this nation. Take a look at this story from CNN. Layla Santiago, Mount Rushmore's a monument of 2 slave owners on land wrestled away from Native Americans. They've jumped the shark, man. And now they're straight up saying that it was dark and divisive. They're on the other side of this. And I wonder if there's even a chance that things are brought together. They keep saying that Trump is not unifying, Trump is divisive. I'm sorry, man. You know, Trump is a symptom, in my opinion, of the divide. But the media has caused all of this. All of it. I love that meme. They say, get rid of the media and watch all of these problems disappear overnight. It's true. And you know what? I'll take criticism for that as well. Because I had this conversation on the IRL podcast. You know, we do it at night, Monday through Friday, saying, you know, there are people who are messaging me saying, you're talking too much about the unrest and the conflict. And I'm like, I talk about things that I think are important. You know, and some people have said it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You're talking about it. It's making it worse. You're highlighting things. They're not relevant, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, listen, man, people have died. People are dying. We've had an ongoing month of unrest it escalated dramatically in the beginning of the month. It's flickered. And now we're seeing this stuff, even at Trump's event. Protesters pulled up with white vans, pulled the wheels off, pulled the tires off. Am I supposed to pretend like these things aren't happening? You know, people, what do they want me to talk about? I look at the news every day and I see big breaking stories. And the big breaking story right now is people were on a highway and they got hit. Do I just ignore these ongoing protests blocking highways and the escalation? Maybe that's what really they want to happen. When these news outlets continually write about everything being awful and being the worst, myself included, yeah, people start to build that mindset and that worldview. And maybe that's why they're so hell-bent on censorship, so they can stop anyone from finding out what's happening out of fears that it'll make things worse. I honestly don't know, man, but I'll tell you this. I think the people have a right to know, and I think the people choose what they want to see. People like to accuse me and even these news outlets of purposefully choosing these stories because we know it's clickable and stuff like that. And that's absolutely not true, at least for independent commentary and independent journalists. It's partially true for big news organizations. The reality is, someone sees something they think is important, they're going to talk about it. And that's what I'm doing. I can't tell you why these newsrooms want to write these stories, but for the most part, when it comes to, say, The Guardian writing about the car accident, it's because a car accident happened, because somebody drove down the highway and hit somebody, and because it's freaking us all out. Will it get worse? I honestly don't know, but I can only imagine, right? It's interesting to me that people are surprised by the continued escalation and, you know, threat to life, threat to liberty in the pursuit of happiness. We have right now people in Portland who are literally trying to burn down a courthouse for like the past several days. They've been rioting for a month, trying to set up an autonomous zone. The police have not been able to stop these people. I don't understand why they haven't just swept in and arrested everybody. Seattle's really, really awful as well. And today, on the 4th of July, Homeland Security and Federal Protective Services are being deployed. I'm sorry, man. This is important stuff. And it's what's in the news. One thing I find truly interesting about all of this, I see some people, some commentators, particularly on the left, they're talking about Trump as though nothing else is happening. And it's the weirdest thing to me. You know, I look at on my Twitter feed, the people I follow, left wing, right wing, you know, mainstream news organizations and reporters, even reporters I'm very critical of. That's how I know to be critical of them, because I follow and see what they have to say, right? Isn't it funny how free speech works? And these are the big stories. When I'm on Twitter and I'm looking at what the left and the right are talking about, they're talking about this speech, they're talking about the car accident. It's become a big issue. Yet there are some people that are in like an entirely different dimension where they're like, did you hear Trump had 2 salt shakers that were bigger? I'm not kidding. And I'm like, where's that news cycle? They, you know, some people went really, really hard into the Russia bounty story. And I'm like, it was one story. You've got to wait for confirmation and verification. Nothing really came of this. And people are like, why won't you talk about it, Tim? What do you mean? Because every single time they go, Russia, it turns out to be fake news. And then guess what? Trump denied it. And the White House denied it. And the NSA somewhat denied it, saying it's questionable and we can't verify. What do you want me to report on? An anonymous source for the New York Times that I don't know is claiming something happened and we haven't confirmed it. That's insane. And every single time a story like that comes out, it's debunked in 2 or 3 days. But people just want to pretend like there's more important things than people being attacked than the 4th of July. So look, man, I wish the best for our country. And when I look at Donald Trump giving that speech, it just seems like regular old America, talking about defending our statues and monuments, that the left is trying to tear down these things. They literally are. They're literally doing this. Does the media expect Trump to take a middle-of-the-road approach on the desecration of abolitionists? A middle-of-the-road approach on people being beaten in the streets? What is he supposed to do? Come up and say, I'm going to try and unify this country. Tearing down some statues, fine. Violence and mob rule is somewhat okay. No. He's going to stand hardline on the Constitution and the rule of law because he has to. But because the far left has gone so far off the rails, they're like, well, Trump's being divisive. Yeah, when you have violent lunatics running around causing property destruction, you want Trump to cater to that? Sorry, that's against the law. These people who are blocking the highways, they're breaking the law. The people attacking the courthouse, trying to burn it down, launching fireworks at it, they're breaking the law. Is Trump supposed to support them? Just because you support them doesn't mean doesn't make it divisive when Trump says they're breaking the law. I'll leave it there, man. It's 4th of July. We'll see what happens tonight. Next segment will be coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel, and I will see you all then.